on some basics and also some advanced things. Just relax.
We've been warming up for 10 minutes. Now I'm trying to show Jason the hip switches and the key components to start passing. Here he's doing some good hip switches, but he overcommits to this next one. Right there, he lost control. So I told him he has to control his hip switches. He's also missing one more thing. I told him earlier he has to stuff one of my legs between his leg before he passes. Let's see if he figures it out. There he goes. He finally caught on. So now I'm telling him to pinch in when he passes before he does the hip switch. So once he stuffs my leg, he needs to pinch that trapped leg, keep his base, and then do a hip switch from there. He floated a little bit on that hip switch. He needs to drop his weight a little more, and he needs to control my leg a lot more so I don't squirm like that. So I'm telling him to control it a little more. So I told him to try it again. Boom. There he goes. He's pinching a lot better. Getting better. He's getting better. So now I'm telling him to slow it down and focus on the moves. So right here I told him, you're still floating. You still gotta get my leg out of the way when you do the hip switch. I told him he has to drop his hip a little lower and then drop in. Here I'm going to show him real quick what I mean. So him committing this way, he's overcommitting and his base is off. I'm telling him when he does it, he has to pinch in and drive and then drop his hip low. And then make sure to base out and control the hip switch. Don't just throw your body, you have to control the drop. So here I'm going to base with my left hand, with my left arm, or push it on his shoulder, then hip switch. So it's got to be all in one motion. And then switch back. So I'm going to do it again. Hip switch, control my base, boom, come back in. It's got to be all in one motion, or else the guy will escape. So here we're going to drill it again. He stuffs my leg. He's controlling. He attempts the hip switch. A little better. I'm still giving him some details. So I'm telling him to control my leg a little more, and his base has to be a lot stronger. See his left knee, how it's driving in, and he's a lot lower and tighter. That's what he needs to do. He needs to put pressure on me as he's dropping in and controlling that right leg so I don't turn it in like that. So if he puts his hip or his knee in, it doesn't allow my knee to slide in. So here I'm going to make him do it again. Stuff the leg. He controls that single leg. He drops tight, keeps that pinch, boom, and then switch back. So now here I'm showing him stuffing the leg. If the guy is holding you strong, he has to switch control just like that. The movement that I did was very subtle. It was a very subtle movement. All I'm doing is controlling that leg, and I do for the angle. Now, if the guy has a really good half guard and I can't do the X pass, which is what I was about to try to do, I cut the angle. So cutting this angle counters that. So I keep all that pressure there, and as soon as I put that pressure, I stretch my leg out, then I hip switch the other way, and I go for the pass. So here I'm trying to make him try it. And we're discussing he has to control it. He's attempting to do the angle pass, but he's a little bit too far over my hip because I could easily sweep him, or his base can get thrown off. So here I'm going to show him again that when he does this, he has to keep his base controlled. Pinch, and as he falls, base, and don't overcommit going that direction. He has to stay control, low and tight. So right here I told him I'm going to put my shin over, boom. Look how low I am. I'm low and I'm squeezing and I'm tight. My hip is low. Boom. I base. I drop my hip right there. And I pinch. I grab the back of the belt. I hip switch. Come back. I'm pushing him that way. That's why it's called an angle pass, because I'm making him go one direction. I'm pretty much making him do a shrimp. Or I make him do a shrimping position. I'm just creating the angle on him, or forcing the angle on him. Boom. He attempts it again. He already has a mistake here. He's not doing his left arm underhook. So I'm doing the push. Then I told him he has to get his underhook first. So there you go. He gets the underhook. The thing over here on this part right here is his body is leaning too much to that left, because that's the direction I want to sweep. So what he needs to do is bring his weight the other way, so he has a better timing if I do try to sweep him. There you go. See that? When he drops his hip a little bit further the other way to the right, it's much harder to sweep him. Plus he's controlling my belt. I'm telling him he has to control my belt so I don't turn into him. He attempts a hip switch. He controls. Much better. Now I'm telling him that he has to grab my belt, because if he doesn't, I'm just going to turn into him. It stops my hip motion. So here I'm trying to show him again. Once I get this angle right here on him, he's going to turn into me like that. So it's hard to control. But if I hold his belt, there you go. It's much harder for him to turn into me, because I'd rather him turn away from me so I could get his back if he overcommits. So I told him to attempt the X pass first, because I've shown them the X pass before. So I told him to focus on that. If that doesn't work, then I want him to do what we've been working on, which is the low, tight hip switch. Watch his arm grab. Boom. Stay low and tight and pass. The third one is cutting the angle. If he has the guy is doing a strong half guard, cut that angle, grab the back of the belt or pants, stretch the leg out, drop the hip, pop the switch real quick, and control. So I'm trying to remind him to do those 3 combos. That do the X pass first, which what we were working on last time, and these next 2 that we've been working on now, to add it. So he's doing 3 combos. Here he wanted to do the angle pass. So he's grabbing my belt. Here we go. He needs to control his weight. There you go. Nice. I'm gonna try again. At this point, I'm making him decide what he wants to do, which pass he wants to attempt, because it is his private class, so I want him to feel like he has control of it as well. Here's a good angle of the other side of how it looks. So right there, I'm telling him he has to pass his shin over as much as he can. He has to control his weight. His head's got to be pushing towards my shoulder so I don't push his head, because I could easily push him over, and of course wherever the head goes, the body follows. So I'm telling him he has to put pressure towards me and pretty much hugging towards me, and watch his base. His base has got to be more behind me so I don't sweep him forward. So here he has a good tight position. There you go. Nice hip switch, and he goes. Here I'm trying to show him the difference. So I'm telling him that you can't keep your weight all the way to the left. That he has to just keep it control, time it, feel it, and then switch. So you saw my switch is a little bit more control and slow, and it's subtle movements. So I'm trying to tell him that don't just move to think about the moves, to analyze it, why it works, so you don't stress out so much on worrying not working. I hope that makes sense. So here I'm telling him to go ahead, try the passes he wants to do. Right here he's attempting this pass. Boom, X pass. Good attempt, but he's got to put his knee in there right away. Only thing is he let go of my leg too fast, but that's alright. So look, he did a hip switch, but he's too high. Look at his hip. Look at his hip. Look how high his hip is. See? He switched. He was too high on his hip. He was putting all his weight on his knees. All his weight should be dropping on his hip. He's floating. He floats too much. I'm telling him you're floating way too much. Here I'm trying to show him. After you do the X pass, look at my hip is really high. After you do the X pass, look at my hip. I slide it down, and it's much tighter. So compared to what he did first, he'll turn into me. So if I do it tight, boom, I drop my hip, I slide, it's much harder for the guy to turn into me. So he can't float. After he does the X pass, he needs to stay low and tight and drop his hip immediately. Here's the X pass, boom, hip drop right away. So here he's gonna attempt it again. X pass, boom. Look at his hip, much lower, much tighter. So he's gonna try it again. I'm trying to tell him do it again. Sharpen it up. Boom, nice and tight. X pass, boom. Look right there. Yeah, he went straight for the hip switch, which is good. That works as well. But he just needs to control it a little better. Feel my body out, depending how I'm moving. X pass, nice. Bam, boom. He drops his hips right away. Good control. It's a lot better than the first one. So creating this angle on me right here is much harder. So if he drops his hip on that right there, I can't do that turn. So if he pushes on my hip, I can't turn into him. So that hip of him dropping that way, all that weight right there, I'm not able to turn into him. So it's important to drop that hip immediately before I shrimp in right there. It prevents that. So here he's stuffing the leg, which is a very important. X pass, he drops his shin, slides in. Perfect. Much better. That was a nicer transition, a nicer timing, and a better control.